So the end times is full of really tragic, sad, horrific, unhappy events. And a lot of the events that are going to be taking place during the end times are going to be really hard on the nation of Israel. And in fact, the nation of Israel as we know it today is going to collapse. It's going to be wiped out. It's not going to exist anymore. God has plans for the nation of Israel. He has plans for the descendants of Abraham to bring them into their own land with expanded borders. But it isn't going to be the present nation state that we see right now. However, God has used the formation of this nation of Israel that we see right now in order to bring Jews and the descendants of Abraham into the land of Israel. He's going to consolidate them there. Not all the Jews, obviously, but many, many of them. And then out of this group of people from Israel, from the 12 tribes, he's going to be bringing some of them into the wilderness as part of the saving of a remnant of Israel. Now, the Old Testament is just full of passages that talk about the remnant of Israel. So if you go to a concordance and you look at the word remnant, you're going to see all the places, especially in the Old Testament prophets, where God talks about saving a remnant, or that only a remnant will be preserved. And a remnant is a small portion of a bigger whole. So in Daniel chapter 9, verse 27, upon the wings of abomination will come one who makes desolate. This is the abomination of desolation that Jesus referred to in Matthew 24, verse 15. And he said, when people see the abomination of desolation, they should flee into the wilderness. He's not talking about everybody fleeing. He's talking about the people who are in Judea. The people who are in Jerusalem need to flee the city. Also in Daniel chapter 12, we learn that for times and half a time, basically 42 months or 1,260 days or 3.5 years, that Israel will have the worst trouble that she has ever had in her whole entire existence. So this last 3.5 years of Daniel's 70th week is the time of great tribulation for the nation of Israel. This is going to be when the reign of the beast begins, when the Antichrist takes his seat in the temple of God, proclaiming that he's God. There are many, many, many verses that talk about this event taking place. And of course, if you're a preterist or you believe that all of this stuff has already been fulfilled, well, don't bother with what I'm going to say, because I believe this is all future prophecy. Perhaps in the past there was some kind of foreshadowing or some kind of pre-fulfillment of some of these events, but the real fulfillment is going to be during the last days, just before Jesus returns. We know the abomination of desolation is going to take place. We know that God has a remnant that he's going to preserve, so that when Jesus sets up his millennial kingdom, that he will have a group of people who will be the foundation for the new Israel. And we know how long this time will last. It will last 3.5 years, basically. So these are all things that are pretty common knowledge in eschatology circles. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions now, though, that you never hear people addressing. At least I don't hear it. Maybe it's out there somewhere, but I don't hear it being addressed. The big question that I have, there's actually kind of two of them here, and these are the two questions that I'm going to be looking at today in this video. Maybe just get to one of the questions and the answers. The big question is how are these people going to get into the wilderness? Where are they going to go? Who's going to lead them? And how does this work? So for all of this talk about the Antichrist and a remnant going into the wilderness and God preserving a remnant, I don't see anybody talking about how this is going to happen, practically speaking. How does this work? Well, the Bible actually tells us. It tells us in sort of an indirect way using symbols. And then it actually tells us in a very direct way, very plainly, how or who's going to lead this remnant into the wilderness. The problem that we have when we read the passages where it's very plainly stated who's going to do this, we've already been indoctrinated with a belief system that doesn't allow for that possibility. Okay, so for most of us, the eschatology that we have, and I don't care if you're pre-mid or post-trib, whatever, or a pre-wrath, doesn't matter. Most people believe that Jesus will not actually come to earth until the end, okay, till Armageddon. And most people then believe that he will come down on the Mount of Olives, and the events that we read about in Zechariah 14, that's when they take place. But I'm going to propose to you that the events of Zechariah 14 actually take place at the time of the abomination of desolation, that Jesus actually returns to the earth to rescue his remnant and lead them into the wilderness. And I'm going to show you the very plain place where the Bible actually tells us that that's what's going to happen. And then we're going to look at a place where it's told a little bit more indirectly. You know, my prayer is really that you'll have eyes to see this. And most people just cannot grasp the idea that Jesus is going to be very personally involved in many of the events that take place during the end times, especially the events that surround the nation of Israel. So the first place that I want us to look is actually in Matthew 24, because Jesus tells us in Matthew 24 that he's the one who's going to be coming for this remnant. And the specific verse that is the answer to who is going to lead the remnant into the wilderness is actually found in verse 27 of Matthew 24. But I want to read a little bit before that to give you the context for this so that you can understand when this is happening. So in verse 15, Jesus says, "When you see the abomination of desolation, or the desolating sacrilege spoken of by the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him who is on the housetop not go down to take what is in his house, and let him who is in the field not turn back to take his mantle. And alas for those who are with child and those who give suck in those days, and pray that your flight may not be on winter or on a Sabbath. For then there will be great tribulation, such as has not been from the beginning of the world until now, no, and never will be." And Jesus is basically quoting Daniel 12, verse 1 there. "And if those days hadn't been shortened, no human being would be saved. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be shortened. Then if anyone says to you, 'Lo, here is the Christ,' or 'There he is,' do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will arise and show great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, if possible, even the elect. Lo, I have told you beforehand. So if they say to you, 'Lo, he's in the wilderness,' do not go out. And if they say, 'Lo, he's in the inner rooms,' do not believe it." The next verse is the one I want to focus on. "For as lightning comes from the east and shines as far as the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever the body is, there the eagles will be gathered together." Okay, so I want to look at this word "coming" here, because this is actually a technical word. This is a word that has a specific meaning. It doesn't just mean that somebody shows up and is there, or that they come, like partway to the clouds and then gather people up. Or this word is very specific. And I'm just going to put this definition that I have from Bible Hub. I'm going to put it up here for you to look at. Coming comes from the Greek word parousia, which means to be present, to arrive, to enter into a situation. Properly, it means coming, especially the arrival of the owner who alone can deal with a situation. Okay? The arrival of the owner who is the one who can deal with the situation. Okay? That's a very precise meaning of the word coming. It's not just like little Johnny comes home or something like this. This coming means an important person has arrived to take care of the situation. The second meaning is where it's used as the arrival or visit of a king or some other official, a royal visit. The word means literally being beside. That is, it's the personal presence of somebody. So what we're looking at here is the personal arrival, the personal presence of somebody who all by themselves, alone, can take care of this situation. The situation is too big for somebody else to handle. This person is the one who can actually deal with the situation, who has the authority to do it, and who is able to do it. So when it comes to delivering the remnant of Israel, this group of people who is going to need to flee to the mountains, what Jesus is saying here, for as the lightning comes from the east and shines as far as the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Okay, we're not talking about Jesus' glorious coming, because he's going to talk about that here in a few verses later. What he's talking about here is in the context of taking this group of people into the wilderness. And what he says is that his coming is going to be like lightning flashing from the east to the west. Okay, how quick is that? How fast does lightning show up? Well, it shows up and then it's gone. This is how Jesus is going to be delivering the remnant. It very, very fast. They have to be ready, and that's why he's saying, don't go back and get anything. Don't get your cloak. Just stop what you're doing and run, run. Okay, get out of there ASAP. Because later on, people are going to say, oh, no, he hasn't left. He's in the wilderness, or here, he's in the inner rooms. That we know where Jesus is. We know where the Christ is. And Jesus says, don't believe it. Because when I come, I am coming so fast, I'm going to be there and be gone. You're not going to be able to find me. You're not going to be able to know where I am. And this is the coming here that we're talking about. It's the parousia. It's when Jesus comes, because he's the only one who can deal with the situation. And it involves his personal presence. It's not like he's sending somebody else to do this. He is going to do this personally. This is his parousia for the remnant of Israel. All right. And then it says, wherever the body is, there the eagles will be gathered together. A lot of people take offense at this little illustration here, but Jesus is the body. And some passages will say, wherever the body is, there the vultures will be gathered together. And the illustration there is that of a carcass. It's being swarmed by a bunch of vultures or eagles feeding on the carcass. And I know it sounds really gross and everything like that, but the picture is that when Jesus comes, he's going to be surrounded by people who are attracted to him. Okay, they're attracted to him, and they are going to follow him into the wilderness. They're going to follow him. So Jesus is telling these people that when you see the abomination of desolation, you got to act really fast, really fast. I'm coming. I'm going to be here like lightning from the east to the west. And there's going to be a group of people who are going to be attracted to me. And I'm going to take them into the wilderness. And you cannot waste any time. And I'm not going to linger. I'm not going to be around where people can say, oh, he's over here or he's over there. That's not how it's going to be. I'm going to be here and I'm going to be gone. So Jesus is the one who is going to be leading the remnant of Israel into the wilderness. Now, we're going to look at another coming here. Verse 29 talks immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened. Okay, these are the events associated with the sixth seal. Notice they're happening after the abomination of desolation, not at the time of the abomination. Okay, they're happening after the tribulation of those days. Okay, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light, the stars will fall from heaven, the powers of the heavens will be shaken. And then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And if you look at Revelation 6, where it talks about the sixth seal, people see the Lamb and the Father on the throne, and they say the great day of their wrath has come. Okay, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. The Son of Man will be coming, his parousia, his visible presence coming to earth. So Luke 21 has kind of the parallel passage to Matthew 24, Only instead of saying that when you see the abomination of desolation that you need to flee, what it says, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know that its desolation has come near. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let those who are inside the city depart. So instead of saying when you see the abomination, what he says is when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies. Okay, Zechariah is going to talk about Jerusalem being surrounded by armies. And it's going to be in the context of Jesus coming and leading a remnant out. Okay, so let's listen to the passage. Many people, in fact, most people, take this passage in Zechariah chapter 14 and they apply it to Armageddon. They apply it to the second coming of Christ, that he's going to step down on the Mount of Olives and all this and that. But when you actually think about the things that are happening at the time of the abomination of desolation, there's going to be an earthquake, according to the book of Revelation. 7,000 people will die, a tenth of the city will be destroyed. And this passage here in Zechariah also speaks of an earthquake and an opening that happens in the mountains when the mountain is split and people fleeing through. And we'll see something similar in Revelation 12 as well. But let's take a look at Zechariah 14. Behold, a day of the Lord is coming, when the spoil taken from you will be divided in the midst of you. And I will gather all the nations against Jerusalem to battle. The city will be taken, the houses plundered, the women ravished. Half the city shall go into exile, but the rest of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Then the Lord will go forth and fight against those nations as when he fights on a day of battle. Verse 4. On that day his feet shall stand on the Mount of Olives, which lies before Jerusalem on the east. And the Mount of Olives shall be split in two from east to west by a very wide valley, so that one half of the mount shall draw northward and the other half southward. And the valley of my mountains shall be stopped up, for the valley of the mountains shall touch the side of it, and you shall flee. Okay, you shall flee, as you fled from the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah. Then the Lord your God will come, and all the holy ones with him. Okay, that actual word "come" there can be translated. It's a very common word that can be translated "go" or "come," either one. And it's up to the translator to decide how it's supposed to be translated. And in my estimation, how the word should be translated is it should say "go." His feet will stand, on the Mount of Olives, and then the Lord your God will go and all the holy ones with him. So the holy ones there are not angels, it's people, chosen people who are picked to go with Christ into the wilderness. Not every single person who's in Israel at that time is going to be someone that is going to be chosen to be a part of the new Israel is going to be once Jesus begins to rule and reign. This is the foundation group that is chosen by Christ, that's going to be preserved by Christ in the wilderness, so that when he begins his rule and reign, he can bring these people out of the wilderness, and they are the foundation for that new Israel he's going to be establishing. Okay, and it talks about how the Lord will go forth and fight against those nations as when he fights on a day of battle. And remember, it's the Lord who puts it into the heart of the beast and the 10 kings to destroy the harlot. And that's part of what's going on here. So the day that this happens is the second woe. It's the day that the 2 witnesses ascend into heaven. It's the day of an earthquake. It's the day that a third of mankind is killed by fire, smoke, and sulfur, by 4 angels from the river Euphrates. So this is a big, huge, gigantic day that it's going to go down in history. Everybody is going to remember this day. And basically, it's the end of World War III. It's the end. Okay, this is the end. The harlot's destroyed. This present world system is going to be destroyed. The nation of Israel and the city of Jerusalem is going to be overrun by the Gentiles for 42 months. What you see in Israel right now is going to be gone. It's going to be gone. It's not going to survive. None of this is going to survive. There's going to be a group of chosen people who survive. And God is going to make a nation out of those people who are the survivors, the remnant of Israel. So here it says that the Lord your God will put his feet on the Mount of Olives. The mountain will be split, and then this great wide valley will all of a sudden appear, and people will flee through that valley. So where else does it talk about Jesus being the one who is going to lead the remnant into the wilderness? Well, let's look at Revelation chapter 12. Remnant of Israel is symbolized by a woman who's going to flee into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God in which to be nourished for 1,260 days. That's in verse 6. And then if you go down, then the next little passage talks about Michael having the war in heaven and Satan being cast out. Daniel 12 talks about how Michael will arise, and then there will come this time that's the worst of any time in Israel's history, and Satan is thrown to the earth, and that's when woe to the earth, because he's filled with wrath. Verse 13, and when the dragon saw he'd been thrown down to the earth, he pursued the woman who'd borne the male child. But the woman was given the 2 wings of the great eagle, that she might fly from the serpent into the wilderness to the place where she is to be nourished for a time, times, and half a time. So remember, we're looking at symbolism here. The woman is the remnant of Israel. Well, what's the eagle, or what's the eagle's wings here? Well, let's go back to where this is used in the past. In the book of Exodus, chapter 19, verse 4, this is God speaking to the children of Israel. He is wanting to enter into a covenant with them. Let's start at verse 3. And Moses went up to God, and the Lord called to him out of the mountain, saying, Thus you shall say to the house of Jacob, and tell the people of Israel, You have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Okay, so this is God saying that he bore them on eagle's wings, that God personally delivered them. And God did personally deliver the Israelites from Egypt, from Pharaoh, through the plagues that Moses did, through the parting of the Red Sea, okay, so that they could go across on dry land. God did this stuff. He was the one who personally did it. And he also had what he called his angel. This is the angel of the Lord. Moses worshiped the angel of the Lord. He is the one who appeared in the burning bush. He was the one in the pillar of fire and the pillar of cloud that went with Israel into the wilderness, that was always there, providing light at night and providing shade during the day. There's a very interesting place in Zechariah chapter 14 where we read about some strange light occurrences. Okay, chapter 14, verse 6. On that day there shall be neither cold nor frost, and there shall be continuous day. It is known to the Lord, not day and not night, for at evening time there shall be light. So this to me speaks of that whole pillar of cloud and fire, where there is light that's guiding the remnant of Israel as they flee into the wilderness. This is a totally unprecedented thing. It's known only to the Lord. And verse 8 says, And on that day living waters shall flow out from Jerusalem, half of them to the eastern sea and half to the western sea. It shall continue in summer as in winter. So there's going to be a flow of water that is going in 2 directions, okay? It's going to the Mediterranean and going over toward where the Dead Sea is. So the woman is going to be taken into the wilderness. She's given 2 wings like the great eagle. This is the symbolic way of saying that God is going to carry them, just like he did the nation of Israel, into the wilderness on eagle's wings. And then Revelation 12, verse 15. And the serpent poured water like a river out of his mouth after the woman to sweep her away with the flood. Okay, this is a flood of troops. Okay, this is an army that's coming after the remnant, just like at the time of Pharaoh when the Egyptian army was pursuing the Israelites. But the earth came to the help of the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed the river which the dragon had poured from his mouth. This is a very colorful way of saying that the earth is going to split open and it's going to swallow up the army. So when the Mount of Olives opens up, it's going to, the remnant will flee into the wilderness through that opening. And then as they are being pursued by the dragon's army, that is, Satan is going to have an army chasing after them, the Mount of Olives is going to close back up again on these people and destroy them. Verse 17, and the dragon was angry with the woman and went off to make war with the rest of her offspring on those who keep the commandments of God and bear testimony to Jesus. So when the dragon sees that he is not able to get to the remnant of Israel, he is going to focus his anger on people who keep the testimony of Jesus. That is, people who believe the book of Revelation, what God has said in the book, people who are following after Jesus. And the commandments of God that they're keeping is don't take the mark of the beast. They're not going to follow the beast or worship the beast or the image of the beast. They're not going to be a part of that. So that's the colorful description here in Revelation chapter 12. In many places in the Old Testament, we read about how God cares for his people, like a shepherd cares for the sheep, that he leads them to still waters, that he gives them their green grass to feed on, that he provides safety and security from predators. There's so many passages in the Old Testament that talk about God's care for his people. Hosea chapter 2, verse 14. Therefore, behold, I will allure her. I will bring her into the wilderness and speak comfort to her. I will give her her vineyards from there, and the valley of Achor as a door of hope. And she shall sing there as in the days of her youth, as in the day when she came up out of the land of Egypt. There's one other little place here in Revelation 11 where we see the imagery of Egypt and the flight of the remnant from Egypt, and also the destruction, the fiery destruction that comes on the city of Jerusalem, and it's compared to Sodom. So in Revelation 11, talks about how the beast will make war on the two witnesses and conquer them and kill them, and their dead bodies will lie in the street of the great city, which is allegorically called Sodom and Egypt, where their Lord was crucified. Why is it called allegorically Sodom and Egypt? It's because the children of Israel fled from Egypt, and Lot fled from Sodom. On the day that Lot left Sodom is the day that the fire and brimstone rained down on the city. And it's called Egypt because that's the place where the remnant is going to flee from, just like in the Old Testament when the Israelites fled from Egypt. We know that when Jesus left the earth, he told his disciples that he was coming back. And in Acts chapter 1, when the disciples are watching Jesus go up into heaven, two men say to them, "Men of Galilee, why do you stand looking into the sky? This Jesus who's been taken up from you into heaven will come in the same way you have watched him go into heaven." Jesus is going to return to the Mount of Olives, and it isn't about believers now. It's about rescuing and delivering the nation of Israel. It's about taking that remnant into the wilderness. Psalm 16, verses 1 through 3. Preserve me, O God, for in you I put my trust. O my soul, you have said to the Lord, you are my Lord. My goodness is nothing apart from you. As for the saints who are on the earth, they are the excellent ones in whom is all my delight. So that phrase there, the excellent ones, is the same phrase, the same word that's being used in Zechariah 14 when it talks about then the Lord my God will go and all the holy ones or all the excellent ones with him. Malachi 3, 2 through 4. But who can endure the day of his coming? And who can stand when he appears? For he's like a refiner's fire and like a launderer's soap. And he will sit as a smelter and a purifier of silver. And he will purify the sons of Levi and refine them as gold or silver, so that they may present to the Lord offerings in righteousness. Then the offering of Judah and Jerusalem will be pleasing to the Lord, as in the days of old, as in former years. Micah 2:12 and 13. I will surely assemble all of you, O Jacob. I will surely gather the remnant of Israel. Okay, this is God saying, I will gather the remnant of Israel. I will put them together like sheep in the fold, like a flock in the midst of their pasture. They shall make a loud noise because of so many people. The one who breaks open will come up before them. They will break out, pass through the gate, and go out by it. Their king will pass before them with the Lord at their head. Isaiah 40, verses 10 and 11. Behold, the Lord God shall come with a strong hand, and his arm shall rule for him. Behold, his reward is with him, and his work before him. And he will feed his flock like a shepherd. He will gather the lambs with his arm, and carry them in his bosom, and gently lead those who are with young. So those are just a few of the passages here that talk about how Jesus, who is God, is going to be coming back at the time of the abomination of desolation to personally escort his remnant into the wilderness. When he touches down on the Mount of Olives, coming back the way he left, there's a great earthquake that will happen, and the mountain will split in two, creating this wide valley that these people will be able to pass through. And as they're going through, the dragon and his army will try to follow them. But once they are through, then just like Pharaoh and his army at the Red Sea, the mountain will close back up again and swallow this flood that comes from the dragon's mouth. It will basically swallow up the army that goes after them. Jesus will lead them into the wilderness. He will personally shepherd them into a place where they will be kept, nourished, fed, protected for 3.5 years. And there is a place that I think that he will be taking them to, and it's not Petra. It's someplace else. It's a place that Jesus himself went to when he wanted to escape from people who were persecuting him, trying to capture him before the time. And somebody just sent me a wonderful article, and as soon as I read it, I went, that's where he's going to be taking them. I think I know where they're going to go. But it's the Lord who is going to be doing this. The Lord is going to be doing it. And a lot of us have this resistance to believing that it's actually Jesus who's coming to do that, because we've been taught erroneously that Jesus is not going to show up for anything until he shows up at the very end at Armageddon. But that isn't what the Bible teaches. The Bible teaches that Jesus himself will make an appearance because he's the only one who can take care of the situation and make sure that these people get out and that they're kept safe in the wilderness. So he's going to personally do that. And so here's the deal. If our rapture happens this fall, which I'm really praying that it will, and if not, then we go till next year, and we have it's the same order of events. It's the same template. Nothing changes in terms of the order of events, except for we go out another year. But personally, I really can't see that will happen. But I always leave that option open because I don't know for sure. This is a by faith adventure. I don't have any kind of magic sight into the future. All I can do is read what the scriptures say and look at the world around and go, how does this compare? And that's all really any of us can do. So I'm doing my best to sort of figure out what's happening. But the point is that if we're raptured this fall in 2023, then Jesus will be coming for the remnant of Israel in April of 2024. That's how soon that would happen. It would happen really, really fast. And because Jesus fulfilled the first 3.5 years of Daniel's 70th week, he is also going to personally participate in the fulfillment of the last 3.5 years of Daniel's 70th week. Jesus was personally here at his first coming, working with the nation of Israel, working with the disciples and so on, and then putting an end to sacrifice and offering through his death on the cross. He will personally return to the Mount of Olives and rescue his remnant at the time of the abomination of desolation, which will be when Jerusalem is surrounded by armies, when the sixth trumpet events take place, when the harlot is destroyed, and a single hour, day, month, and year already predetermined by God at the beginning of the reign of the beast, the eighth king, that the harlot does not ride on. She doesn't ride on the eighth king, only 7 of them. So that's my take on this, and I'll be talking about where the remnant is going to flee to. I think it's not Petra. I think it's another place. The bottom line is that God has a plan for his people, Israel. He is going to make good on the promises that he's made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the promises that he's made to David to have a king on his throne, the promises that he's made for land, for seed, and for blessing. God is a keeper of every promise that he's ever made. And the promises that he's made specifically to Abraham, he is going to make good on during the time of his second coming, specifically at the time of the abomination when he rescues the remnant of Israel. This is such a good story. It's amazing, and it's all in the Word of God. So there'll be a part 3 to this video on Israel in the end times. And leave a comment in the comments section, and we'll see you on another video. Till then, have a blessed day.